Welcome back to another Passive Income for Designers video. Today we're going to go step by step and create a planner together on Figma. I'll show you how to add links to it as well, so then you can share it on whatever platform you want and sell it. As usual, you have a Figma file in the description that has loads of stuff to get you started. So let's jump in. Before we go any further, I just want to show you the final product. You are going to have a PDF that has the months on the side, and then it will have a calendar per every month of 2024. I'm going to walk you through this step by step now. Now we're going to start off from the inside out. We're going to be creating the days first, then the weeks, then the months, and then put them into the full pages. So in order to create the days, I've kind of calculated this already for you. The calendar that we want is a 910 pixel calendar, and then the width of every day is 130. So let's work on that. So I'm going to click on T, tap in and write 00. 50 is way too much. I'm using this font for my calendar, but you can use whatever font suits you. I'm probably going to make it like 12 pixels. It can be pretty small. And then I'm going to use bold. I want to put this inside of an auto layout. So I'll Shift A. And I know that my day width is 130, so I'll put it 130. Let's put the day at the top left corner, and I've got 10 pixels of padding around because that's kind of the default of the auto layout. Let's add a stroke to it, and I think I'm going to use my mid-gray color and keep it on 1 pixel, that's fine. And for the height, I'm gonna set it to 145 for now, but you can use kind of whatever you want. I also know that later when it's in the month, we can set it to just grow dynamically according to how high the month is. So that's my day. Now, I know that with days in any calendar, you usually have a way of also seeing the days that are on the month after or on the month before. And in those ones, the text is usually grayed out. So let's create that. I'm just going to duplicate this day. I'm holding down Option and Shift. And then the day itself, instead of using black, I'm going to use maybe dark gray. Yeah, perfect. I'll just connect this one to my style as well. Great, so we've got our day. Let's make this into a component now. So I'll select both of these, create component set, and I'll call it day. I'll put an underscore before the word day just to symbolize to myself that this is an atom, right? We're never gonna just use this one. It's gonna be a building block for larger components to come. In my property, I will just set whether it's this month, and then this one will be true and this one will be false. I want to add one more thing onto this component, and that is a text component property. So I'll click on the component set, click on here and add a text. I'll call it day number. And the value will just be 00. Then I'll select both of the text boxes, just holding down Command and Shift while I select them. Then in the text section of the design panel, I'll click over here and connect them to day number. And that means that when I use an instance of this component, I can change the day from the design panel and I don't have to tap in. So I've finished step 1, I've made my days. Now let's make the weeks. So in order to make the weeks, I wanted to do a little thinking process. I've put in some examples of calendars here, and let's look at them. So we've got just a few different months from 2024. And the first thing we'll notice is that the first day of every one of these months starts on a different day. And with that, we can look at how that affects the rest of the weeks, right? So the second week starts with 8 and then it kind of descends, right? Starts with 8, then 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The next thing to think about is that most of the months will have 5 weeks on display, but some months will have 6 weeks on display, like September for the next year. Another thing to think about is some months end in 30, some ends in 31. And then the same comes for the previous month. So some of the months will have a 30 on the month before them, and some will have a 31. So these are just stuff to think about when we are creating our calendar. So let's build the week. So I'll go to my day and just copy it. So Command C, and then I'll paste it over here. So now I'm going to put this day into an auto layout. So Shift and A. I'll make sure that it's on a horizontal layout, so they're going next to each other. I'll remove the padding. So holding down Command, I'll tap in here to select all of the paddings at once. 0, and also I don't need any spacing, so 0 that as well. I'll select the day inside of the auto layout and just duplicate it 6 more times. So Command D. Great. So 7 days, lovely. So now comes a bitty bit. This wouldn't be passive income really if we'll make something that isn't scalable for us for later. If we make this and it's just a one-time product, it's not going to help us. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to make this in a super dynamic way. That means that next year we can just reuse the same thing and not have to do it all over again. So we're going to create a component for each week with the different configurations according to which day it starts on. And that way we can build our months so much more quickly. Let's see. We're going to start with the second week because the first week is actually a bit more complicated. So let's have a look at this highlighted week here at the top. We can see that if the month starts on a Monday, then the second week will start with an 8, right? So I'll change my numbers, right? So on the first day, I'll put an 8. Now this is up to you if you want to write 0, 8 or just 8, but I'm just going to go with this. So that is my second week. So I'm holding down Option and Shift and just dragging it down. Now, if the month starts on a Tuesday, then the first day on the second week is a 7, right? So all I can do is select this 14, move it to the start using my arrow keys. Then instead of 14, just write 7. Okay, by doing that, we just need to change one number every time. So I'll just go ahead and create all of these configurations for the second week. So now I've created my second week. I'm going to create this into a component set now so we can swap between them. But before I do that, I'm just going to help myself out. I'll select all of them, Command R to open my batch renaming tool. Then I'll click on number down. Now you see when I clicked on number down, it added a $NN and it shows me like the preview of how they're going to be named. I don't want that 0 before the number, so I can just remove one of these N's and rename. And what will happen is it will name my weeks 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All that does for me is it kind of presets that configuration, because now I'm going to turn this into a component set. You can see I already have these numbers as the value to the property that differentiates between the variations, right? So if I call this configuration, and I know that if the configuration is 1, that means I'm starting on the first day of the week, second day of the week, third day, etc. I'll call this week 2. I'll go ahead and do the same thing for weeks 3 and 4 because they are simple like week 2. Week 5 and week 1 require some changes. So here you can see weeks 3 and 4, and you'll notice I put them next to each other. That just kind of helped me because I can see the previous week, right? So this one ends in 14 and this one starts with 15, 13, 14, etc. Now let's move on to week 5. So the reason week 5 is different is because in some of the configurations, the last few days of week 5 are not going to be in this month. Right? So let's build that now. I've just created a new week like we did before, 7 days in an auto layout. And let's have a look at our first configuration. So this one is going to be 29. Then this one is going to be 30. This one will be 31. And then after that, all of these are for another month. So because I've set it up this way in the original day component, I can just toggle it off and it will change it to be that grayish color. And then I'll just do the same thing, right? So this one is 1, 2, 3, and 4. The only difference is now when I go to create the second configuration, I'm going to select my last one and move it to the start just like I did before, but this time I need to change the number to 28, but I also need to toggle this back on. So I'll continue doing that for the rest of them. So we finished doing that for week number 5, but now we need to do another thing. Because if you remember, the other thing we need to think about is not all months end in 31. Let's do that now. What we're just going to do is we're going to select all of them and basically just copy them. So create a duplication. And in this duplication, we're going to take the 31s. So select all of the 31s that you have, move them to the very right, turn them off so they're not this month, and then change their numbers individually. So this one's 5, this one's 4, this one's 3, and 2. Yeah, so we've created a version of week 5 where there's 31 days in the month, and we've created a version where there's 31 days in the month. Now I know that both of these last kind of configurations are exactly the same, but the reason we should keep both of them is because when we create this all into a component set, it's not foolproof, right? We're still going to have that toggle to change it, whether it's 30 or 31. And if we don't have this option, it will create like a missing option almost. So it's best to have that duplication to protect yourself. I'll just rename these again to have that 1, 2, 3, 4. So Command R, number down, and delete. And now I'll put all of these into a component set. change this to configuration. Lovely. I still need to differentiate between the ones that have a 31 and the ones that don't. So I'll add another variant onto here and I'll call it 31. Then I'll select all of the ones that have it, and in the value I'll just write true, and all of the ones that don't have it, in the value I'll write false. Change the name of the component to week 5, and then you'll see when I just grab one of these, so I have an instance of week 5, I can change the configuration to whatever I need it to be, so what day of the month it starts on, and then I can toggle the 31 on and off. Let's now go to the start of the month and create week number 1. So in week 1, we're going to have a similar thing to week 5, but in the back, right? So the first configuration is the simplest one, just 1 to 7. But we know that if the day starts on the 2nd or 3rd or any other day of the week, we kind of have a similar thing to what we had before, right? So now the first day is going to be from a different month. So I'll duplicate my week, take the last one as I've done previously, move it with my arrow to the start, turn off this month, and then I'm going to start by using 31, but I know that I'll have to do the same thing that I did before, right? Because sometimes the month before will end in 31, sometimes it will end in 30. So let's start with the 31s and then we'll change the rest. So I've created my 7 configurations here. Now, just like we did with week 5, I'll select everything, duplicate it here. I'll just change my 31s to 30s. So this one is 30. And then I can grab all of these 31s, move them to the start and change them to whatever they need to be. I've named them 1 to 7, 1 to 7, create a component set, change the property to configuration. Then I'm going to add, again, a variant. Is the previous month 31? Then all of these will be true and all of these will be false. Now the last one that we need to create is just week 6. Remember, sometimes we have that rogue week 6. It'll only appear in the 6 and 7 configuration. I'm gonna grab the week 5 first configuration only up till 30 from here. Just duplicate it, then I'll detach it. So it's just its own thing. It's not connected to week 5 anymore. That's just a bit of cheating for you. So in configuration number 6 over here, I know that I need one version that starts with 31, right? So if I look at this one, I'm going to need the week that comes after this. So after 30, I have a week that starts with 31 and then goes into next month. So I'll just create that. So that is kind of the week 6 that comes after this week 5, right? If it ends in 30 and the month has 31, it's going to need another week. And then for this one as well. So I'll just duplicate that and move this guy back, turn it on, 30, right? So that continues this one, configuration 7. Let's see if the month only ends in 30. Then I'm not going to need a week 6 here, am I? So week 6 ends with the number 30 and we're looking at a month that only has 30. So there's not going to be a week 6 in this situation, but over here they will be, right? So I'll just move this one and change this to a 6. Now I am going to remove this one. In this case, I know that it's going to cause an issue because I will have a kind of missing variant, but I'd rather have that to protect myself so I don't accidentally have that week 6 in this situation. So now I have all of my weeks configured. Again, this might seem like a why did I need to do this step, but actually you'll just see in a second how we're going to build a month out of this, and it's going to just make our life so much easier and a lot more dynamic. So to start off, let's bring in all of our week components, go into the assets panel and then just pull them out. So I've got week 1, I have week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5, and week 6. I'll tidy them up a bit. I'll just select all of them and put them inside of an auto layout. No spacing, great. Now let's create the day headers. Click on T, tap in. I'll just write Monday to start off with. I might make it like 16 and choose a light one. Great. Now I'll put this inside of an auto layout and I'll fix that auto layout to 130 because I know that that's the width of my days. I'll call this day and then put it inside of another auto layout. Zero everything out just like we did before. Then I'll duplicate this label to create the rest of my days. Then I can just change the names to the correct days of the week and I'll place it inside of the auto layout where I have my weeks. Great, so I've done that. I've also added a little rectangle here in between to create that little border. Notice I use a rectangle and not a line. It's because a line within an auto layout, it kind of loses its spacing. So using a rectangle just makes it a lot simpler. I'm going to call it _month, and I'm going to turn this into a component. Now, you'll see why I do this in a second, but basically this is going to be my atom month, and then I'm going to build out all the rest of my months, kind of pre-make them. So once I create the component, I'll go over here into properties, and I'll expose properties from nested instances. Now, we know that all of these weeks have nested things going on inside of them, right? They have the configuration, do they have a 31st? Yes or no? So I'm going to just turn all of that on. Once I've done that, it means that when I pull an instance of this month out, you will see that I can change everything at once. The next thing we're going to do is the next bitty bit, and this is the next step that we're going to do in Figma, and this is actually creating the different kinds of months that we can have. Let's see what that means. So in our planner, we can just use this one, right? We can just pull it out and go, okay, this is January. January starts on week 4, and it has 31 days, and it doesn't have a week 6, for example, right? So I can just remove this one, but that's not dynamic. We're gonna pre-make all of the options. It's gonna be a lot quicker than you think it is. And once we do that, we'll have all of them ready to go, and we can just go January, February, March, and we don't need to redo it every time. So in the file, you have this little table for you where I put the examples of all the kinds of months we need to create. So first one has the previous as the 31st is true, and it has 31 days in it. That's true for January and August. Next one is previous 31st is true, and it only has 30 days, and that's true for April, June, September, November. And you get the point about the rest. The two kind of odd ones out are February and March, because February only has 28 days, which means that March will have a previous of 28 days as well. So let's see how we do that. I've grabbed an instance of my month atom. Now let's start setting this up, right? So I know that for this one, 31st before needs to be true, and this one needs to be true as well. And there's no week 6, so I'll just delete week 6. Because it's a component, it's not going to disappear completely. It's just going to hide. So that's cool. This is configuration 1. Copy it for configuration 2. Now you'll see something cool. So I'm gonna select kind of inside of here. I'm gonna click on this week and then click on tab. You see how that's highlighted? Click on 2. Tab, 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 2. Tab, tab, 2. Tab, tab, 2. Tab, tab, 2. Done. Duplicate it. Click inside of here. Tab 3. Tab, tab, tab 3. Tab, tab 3. Tab, tab 3. Tab, tab 3. Yeah? So I can continue doing that for all of my configurations. Moving on to our next column, we see that the only difference between the first column and the second column is that this one, 31st, is false. So what we can do is we can just duplicate all of it and just go one by one and turn off 31st. Now, when you reach configuration 6 and 7, you'll see that this one does have a 31st, but in this situation, we don't need it, so we can just delete it. And configuration 7 does actually need it, but in this case, we just need to turn off 31st over here. Now, let's look at the third column. The third one is the previous isn't 31st, but the last one is. So we just copy the first one again, actually, duplicate it over here. And then we go one by one and just remove that previous 31st. So we just remove it from the first one. And we know that what that does is it changes the last number from 31 to 30. Now for February and March, all I need to do is basically, I need to use a month that has previous of 31st is true. And I'm going to use this column, so the second column. Just duplicate all of that over here. And then I do need to go in manually and just make sure that there's no 30th and 28th. So I do kind of need to do this. This is a bit of the sad point where I do need to actually do this. I could have created a week previously for the February months, but I could just go in and do that manually. Change this one to 1, change this one to 2, 3, 4, etc. And remember to turn both of these on for the other month. And for March, I'll do the same thing, but backwards. So I'll probably take the third column, and then anywhere where you can see the previous month, instead of 30, I need to finish it with 28. So what I'm going to do now is put all of these into a component set. But before I do that, again, let's make our lives easier. Rename all of these to 1, right? Because all of the configuration is 1. all of these is 2. Now that I've done that, I'll select all of them, create component set, and I'll already have the first property, right? And in this case, because this is our final kind of product, I am going to give them a bit more of a meaningful name. So I'll say starts on, and then I'll go into my edit property and I'll change it to Monday, Tuesday. I could have named them that originally. I didn't need to name them by the numbers and then change it, to be fair. Friday. Great. Now, one more thing I need to do is actually tell myself which month these belong to, right? So when to actually use them. So I'll add another variant and I'll call it month. Let's give them names, right? So all of these, I know that they fit for Jan and August. So I'll call them Jan. I can't use commas and I can't use spaces. So I'll just use a dot, say August. Then all of these are for April, June, September, and November. All of these are for May, July, October, and December. All of these are for February, and all of these are for March. And I'll call this calendar. And now you'll see that when I use one of these, so let's say it starts on a Wednesday, and then I can say this is an April one. So you see it change to 31 and 30, or if it's a March one, it changed to 28 and 31. Now, the last step in Figma is actually putting it inside of planner pages. I know we did so much up till now, and like I said before, this is just making it dynamic. If we don't want to make it so dynamic, we can just make that first at month and then just change the numbers as we go along. So I have all of these pages. On the side of every page, I have like a January, February, March little selector. And now we're going to bring in our month into here. So I'll go into my assets panel, into months, and then select my calendar. I'll just drop it in here. So I'll just place it where I need it to be, probably around here. Then I'll duplicate it. I'll select the rest of the pages. I'll unselect January, so holding down Shift, and just paste. And that will paste that component exactly in the right place in all of them. Then I'll just go in here and set the correct month, right? So this one is set to January, and I can just look at my calendar and see what day of the month January starts in for 2024. I know that it's a Monday, so it's already selected Monday and January. And the last thing, this D99 is that line beneath the days. So I'm just going to select my January style. And then I'll do that for the rest of the months. So for February, I need to set firstly that I'm using a February month. So you see it kind of expanded in this case. And then my week starts on a Thursday. Wonderful. And then change this to February. See how easy that was? So over here, you can see I've done that for all of my months. I've just set it up using my calendar. The reason this is so brilliant is because next year, all you have to do is duplicate this and change the start day, right? Because next year, September's not going to necessarily start on the same day that it started this year, but that's it. You've created this super dynamic thing. And then you can reuse this component elsewhere, right? You can sell other products with it. So now that we've done that, let's do our next step, which is just exporting it as a PDF. So I have a little cover over here that I'll use. I'll select all of my calendar pages, and then in the design panel at the bottom, I'll export them, and I'll export them as a PDF. I'll save them somewhere in my files, save them in a folder of their own. Once you've done that, we're going to open the first one. So I'll just open that cover PDF, and then I will save it as a new file. So save as, I'll call it 2024 planner. Then I'll select organize pages, insert from file. Then I'll just select the rest of my pages to add them on after the first page. Great. Once they're in, just glance at them and make sure they're in the right order. If they're not, you can set this up. Now, the last thing I need to do is to create my links, right? So in order to do that, I go into Edit PDF, then click on Link, Add or Edit Web Document. Let's start with February. So I'll just drag a square around Feb over here. Now the link type is going to be an invisible rectangle because I don't want it to have lines or anything. And the link action is go to a page view. Once I click on next, I'll get this little dialog, and it's basically telling me, please can you go to the page where you want this to go? I'll use the arrows on top here and just go to February. I'm going to say set the link. And that means I'll just close this. When I click over here, it'll go to February. Cool, right? So I'll do that for all of them. So just to show you how this works, once I've created all of them, I'm going to select all of them at the same time. So I'll just select the top one, hold down Shift and select the bottom one. You see how they all have a line around them. Then I'm going to copy, move on to the next page and just paste. Now, sometimes they don't go exactly into place. I don't know why, but you could just grab them and move them back into place. But essentially, you could just copy them from one page and paste them all over the document. And that will mean that whatever page I'm on, I'll be able to toggle to the other pages from there. Once you've finished adding all of your links, you just save this PDF. And then if you open it on a PDF reader or you open it in Goodnotes or Notability or anything like that, those links will work. Just to show you an example, I exported a kind of more robust version of this planner that I've made and you can find on my Etsy shop. And if I open it on my iPad, I can just tap on here and ask it to open it on Goodnotes. It will ask me if I want to save it as a new document, which I will. Once it's opened, I can flick through the pages as normal, but if I turn off the pen just up here, I can also click on the links that I've created to jump between the different months. I've also set it up that if I click on 2024, I can jump back to the overview, and then if I tap on one of the month, I can jump in here. In this planner that you can find on my shop, I also have a bill tracker and a when did I last section. These are just things that I really enjoy in my own planning. And that is it. We had a pretty long session today, but I think it was worth it. We've just created an amazing asset that can bring you lots and lots of passive income. Of course, you can add loads of things onto here. You can make a tiny calendar as well. You can make a year at a glance. You can make all of these things, but once you have that original asset to work with, you can now shape it, add notes on the page, add trackers, add anything you want to create a fabulous planner. I hope you enjoyed. Please leave a comment below. Let me know what other videos you want to see. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you at the next one.